Welcome to Fighting on Film, the podcast about classic and obscure war movies. From the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to cover it. I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
I'm Robbie of RA Military History.
Grab your Uzis, prime your grenades, and lace up your combat boots. It's Mercenary Month on the Fighting on Film podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to Fighting on Film. And as you heard my professional voiceover work there, it is Mercenary Month. We are bringing you 3 mercenary films this month, and we're kicking off with a absolute 80s schlockfest called Codename Wild Geese.
It's Merc Month, and we're leading off with a Lewis Collins blast of a film.
Oh, it's an absolute treat. So the only write-up I could find on this movie was from 1985, and it was from the Aberdeen Evening Post. That's how non-famous this movie is.
Big in Scotland, though, apparently.
Big in Scotland, yeah. Lewis Collins, he of Professionals and Cups of Bovril fame, can be seen in the follow-up to Who Dares Wins, the all-action thriller Codename Wild Geese, due for release later next month by Entertainment Video. Wealthy Hong Kong businessman hires ex-SAS colonel to smash a drugs operation with a fairly predictable mayhem ensuing. Should be a fairly action-packed stuff, particularly with the extremely heavy backup of Ernest Borgnine, Lee Van Cleef, and Klaus Kinski to keep the blood and guts flowing.
Ironically, there's very little blood and guts.
Yeah.
There's a real absence of squibs.
Yeah, whenever anyone gets shot, it's they just go, they fall back, and there's no
There's a couple
blood.
of little bits where they've put some corn syrup on some people, but
yeah,
it's not something they're heavily into in this film. Maybe that was a budget thing, or it was a decision for ratings, perhaps.
So to go into the production a little bit.
Are we done with plot? Okay.
That's the plot.
I mean, yeah, it is the plot, but there's a little bit more to it. I mean, what about the intricacies of Lewis Collins' son being a heroin addict? I completely missed that element of the film. All you see in the film is Lewis Collins at the grave of someone who looks about the same age as him. And then there's a couple of bits of dialogue where he's like, how many times have you stood with me by the grave of my son and comforted me?
Yeah, consoled me and all that, yeah.
And then apparently at the end, it turns out he died of a heroin overdose. And spoilers, it was his boss who gave him the heroin. What we haven't mentioned also is that this film is actually about the Golden Triangle, so in Cambodia and Thailand, etc., where the opium is produced. The whole mission is to destroy an opium factory and take down a general.
The general.
Never named.
No.
True, it's not the most nuanced of films, but there's some elements that are unspoken but apparently implied.
Yeah, like they set up a plot. If you blink, you miss it, and then we're straight into basically a prolonged firefight with moments of lulls. If you're a B-movie fan, if you love schlock and gore and explosions, then this film is absolutely perfect.
We've put in the legwork for Merc March. You've watched a number of films. I've watched a couple of films.
Yeah.
We've both sat through a film that we can't discuss.
It was called The Last Grenade, and it was shocking. Stanley Baker couldn't save that one. It was awful. Good amount of sterlings. The alley tally
lovely amount of sterlings. But as I was saying, we've done the legwork, and what we've been aiming for with this is finding that sweet spot between good, bad.
And I think this is good, bad.
Yes.
It strays into bad in places.
Yeah, there's some bits, but most of it's laughably bad.
Yeah.
Not most of it, I mean, but the bad bits are laughably bad. And the good bits are, they're good, they're okay. So it's on the right side of the scale of what we were looking for.
Yeah, you're right. But it has some redeeming features as well. We'll talk about them as we go along.
As you said, it's the best of Lewis Collins' mech movies.
So this is part of the Euro War subgenre. And if you're not aware, you have your Westerns are really popular in the 50s and 60s. So a lot of Italian directors start to make Westerns, and they're spaghetti Westerns, as we know. But then that led into, you get like Euro spy genre, Euro war, Euro thriller. European filmmakers just copy what is popular in Hollywood. So if any of you listeners have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, the main character in that gets a contract to go to Italy to make Euro war films and Euro spy films. And the director is Antonio Margheriti. He was most famous for directing Cannibal Apocalypse, which is very high up there in the B-movie charts. You know, people love that one. It's very gory. But it was filmed in Hong Kong, was Codename Wild Geese. And it was part of 3 films that Margheriti and Lewis Collins made together. So the story goes, Roger Moore was stepping down as Bond. Lewis Collins went for an audition. Obviously, he's really famous for The Professionals. He's an absolute hunk. You know, he's on top of his game. You know, he can do stunts, he can drive cars, he can shoot guns. He's in the para reserves, I think.
TA, I think he was in the Territorial Army, wasn't he? And then
so he's on an absolute peak of his game. So he goes for an audition to be Bond, and he doesn't get it.
I think Collins would have been next level edgy. Too much for them at that point, I suppose.
Possibly. I think he could have been coached, and I think he could have been.
He could have brought it down a notch, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could have definitely been molded into a great Bond. But the producer Richard Broccoli at the time thought he was too aggressive, passed him over. So Collins moves into making Euro war films. And just as a quick aside, he was actually linked with the Wild Geese sequel, but it didn't come to pass. And he was actually linked with a Falklands War movie called Task Force South that was never made. I think Collins has such a shame of a career because he has incredible highs and then he just doesn't recover. And it's such a shame of what might have been. You know, he could have been our Arnie, he could have been our Sly Stallone. He definitely could have been. But this is the best one of the 3 films he makes with Margheriti for me.
He is great in it, though.
He's absolutely fantastic. You know,
he is. I mean, when he's acting, he's good. And then when he's just there, he's good. Like when he's clearing that building, it's pretty funny when he does that commando role.
Yeah, and you get a nice close-up of him reloading a Thompson.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to the Thompsons. This is the first of 3 movies, isn't it? There was 2 others afterwards. There was The Last Hunter and Commando Leopard. That was it.
Commando Leopard. Yeah, what a name.
The same people. It's got Klaus Kinski in it again. And
Margheriti was famed for knocking out like a lot of films in a year. He'd film a lot of things. A quick rundown of the rest of the cast. So you've got Lee Van Cleef. He plays China, the helicopter pilot. And he was famous for westerns. You know, he's in like A Few Dollars More, and he's very famous for that. So you can tell like the influences that Margheriti and the rest of those kind of directors at the time bringing in.
He's in a lot of films that Margheriti directed, and he's in a couple more later on.
And then you've got Ernest Borgnine as Fletcher, the DEA agent who sets up the job for Collins's Captain Wesley character. And then you've got Klaus Kinski, a famous German actor who appears in a lot of these films as the bad guy. And it's pretty clear about halfway in that he is the bad guy. An incredibly aloof bad guy, shall we say.
Yeah, he's not. He keeps it on the down low, doesn't he?
He does.
Probably more effective in being the secret baddie than other people.
Yeah, because when Borgnine's character's like, oh, we need to get them out. Something's gone wrong.
It's always like, yeah, I suppose I can just go and I'll go and get them in a minute. Yeah. Yeah, no worries.
Finish a cup of tea, then we'll go.
Ernest, don't worry.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't go. Oh, the boat's broken. Oh no. Okay, never mind.
What a shame. We can't leave now. Oh no.
We'll just wait. It's fine. They'll be fine.
And it rams to a certain point where like he clearly is the villain. He's clearly like stalling.
And then we've got Mimsy Farmer, who is a Canadian journalist who is turned into an opium addict.
Yes.
When she was captured by the general.
Half his characters aren't needed. They don't do anything.
Yeah. There's a whole team of commandos with him. And they're interchangeable.
Yeah, and they die glorious deaths. One of them quite gallantly blows himself up on a train. So that
yes, he does. Yeah,
the train full of opium, he blows it up.
The River Kwai sequence. So basically, they go on this mission.
Yeah,
and they go into the triangle, and they have to steal the general's helicopter in order to get into the triangle because the general has some quite sophisticated radar that can monitor any aircraft. Why didn't they do like a halo jump?
Yeah.
They had to steal the helicopter for Lee Van Cleef to fly.
Yeah.
So they infiltrate into the jungle and find the quarry, which is sort of, for some reason, the general's helicopter's landed there. Isn't explained why.
No.
and there's a little camp. And there's then what can only be described as the most spectacular zip line sequence I've ever seen in a film. I've never actually seen a commando attack using zip lines by
Very ambitious.
It begins by one of the militia like throwing a knife 300 foot into the back of a sentry.
Yep.
Killing him quietly.
And he falls like dives, doesn't he, off the thing?
And then they rig up the zip lines, which is a bit of a faff.
When they already there, they just
why would there be zip lines there? The helicopter takes off.
It was already there.
Dangerous.
It made no fucking sense, and they were like pulling it on that bamboo hut so it wouldn't bang on the hut roof or something, and that was
it was. They were literally like jacking the cable up so it was tall.
They were using like a ratchet.
And the jeopardy of the scene was the shot of it tapping the roof. Oh my god! What if they hear this zip line being set up?
Well, I think then you could hear them like ratcheting it up as well, like the echo in the quarry, like. And it's like the sentry's like, what?
Obviously, the assault then begins, and two mercenaries zip line over the camp and drop off the zip line at the perfect moment, crashing through the roofs of some bamboo huts into a radio room and a barracks, which is the most audacious, commando.
It's spectacular, wasn't it? It was really cool. Like the first guy looks really good because he goes through the roof. That's quite well done. That's not model work. They must have actually done it. And there's like a bit of a shootout. And the guy pulls a knife and kills one of them. It's quite spectacular. And the second guy that goes in, he just goes into like an already made hole in the roof. So it's not as interesting.
Oh, you found that bit disappointing, did you?
A little bit. No, I'm only kidding. But like, it's not as grand because the one guy.
No, I know. And he lands in a room full of like sleeping guards.
He absolutely massacres them, doesn't
they
he?
lose all element of surprise where he just opens fire on them all. They have M16s with 40mm grenade launchers. Like a couple of 40mm grenades into those huts would have done the same job. But anyway, they capture the helicopter. That's the main thing.
After a little sort of shootout.
Mm-hmm. And they all bundle into the helicopter, definitely over the safety limit. But the whole thing is shot day for night, that sequence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's horrendous day for night as well. It's like everyone's got like an aqua tinge. It's like horrible.
But there's some brilliant like 80s like through the binocular shots.
The crosshairs on those binoculars were better than the crosshairs of his sniper rifle.
That is true, yeah.
On his telescopic sight.
You would literally have you would have struggled to hit anything with the reticle on that scope on the ground.
The lads finally get to the opium compound.
They get into the triangle.
They do successfully, even though they're already in the triangle. To then get into the triangle again, that's not
they've
ignore
successfully bypassed the general's extremely complex radar net.
Yeah, he must have had scuds or something.
Yeah, he must have had some SAMs. Just like
yeah.
There was no way we were getting in otherwise.
No, is it absolute wall? Yeah.
They get in and they start the demolition sort of raid, and they attack the opium farm factory.
Yeah, they absolutely obliterate it, don't they?
I don't know the correct terminology for an opium
farm. I'd say farm. Sounds about right.
That sounds quaint. I can just picture the general as a farmer now.
Call me the general. I got your opium right here.
Bit of bumper crop this year.
I got the root, this toot, and this radar in the hole of the deck triangle.
So they to pull it back on track, they run around planting C4 everywhere. And Lewis Collins is just like shouting at the demo guy, more, like more down.
More.
Do you know what we've skipped in our angst to get into the helicopter leave and Cleef action? We've actually skipped the opening of the movie where they're doing like a weird training exercise.
It means nothing, does it? It means
absolutely nothing. It's just an opening sequence. But it's going to be a great film when they're doing an exercise and someone loses a leg.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's like. I was like, is this an exercise? Like, why are they not being shot at? But why has he lost a leg?
And then one of them just goes like, you're too dangerous on your damn exercises, and then it cuts. And you're like, what the fuck was that all about?
Well, he is too dangerous on his exercise. The guy lost his leg.
They went to the Starship Troopers School of Live Fire exercises.
Yeah, if you're not doing it with real ammo, it's no fun.
No. They're doing their part.
Back to the actual plot. Sorry,
yeah,
I just remembered that in a split second.
So bad.
So they are blowing up this opium farm,
and
they find a group of locals that have been held captive.
Hostage. Yeah.
Yeah, hostage captive, including Mimsy Farmer, who plays Kathy Robson, a Canadian journalist. She's pulled out and they're heading for the helicopter, but Lee Van Cleef has dropped the ball, and instead of like guarding the helicopter, their method of exfil, he's gone to help someone that's been wounded, which you would. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But that leaves enough time for someone to actually take their rifle and physically smash the fuel tank of the helicopter.
He just uses the butt of his M16 like it's made out of concrete and just like smashes his way into this helicopter.
Well, I mean, the fuel tank must have been made out of like paper mache.
Yeah.
Because it just goes to nothing, and then there's just fuel pouring out of it, and you're like, oh no, how are they going to get out now?
Oh, no, not the only helicopter in the whole of the triangle.
Right?
Exactly.
Why didn't they take a boat in? They got to the quarry by boat.
Oh yeah, they did.
Which is another scene that we've forgotten.
But I think we'll talk about the boat in the alley tally.
So the rest of the film is them trying to escape.
Yeah. So then they come to, it's like a little castle, like a monastery.
It's like an old mission, yeah.
Like an old
mission type thing. It's like the Alamo, but
that's
in the
it.
jungle.
And then this really old sort of reverend padre comes out.
Yeah, like a Swiss monk.
It's so weird.
Randomly in the.
And he's like, I'll let you in, but only if no weapons in my monastery,
Yeah.
And then
It's House of God, no weapons.
Yeah, that's it. House of God, no weapons. And Lewis Collins is just like, take me guns everywhere.
And then the monk basically sort of just goes, okay, then come on in.
Yeah, come on in, guys. And then you think that, okay, so this is going to be a last stand movie. They're going to fortify the monastery because they had enough weapons to do it. One got an M60. They've still got their...
So many M60s in this film.
Exactly. But then it doesn't happen. They don't fortify the monastery at all. It's just like a set piece to show you the general, the big bad guy. He just walks into the monastery, guns everyone down, and you never see him again. He's not even like important.
He isn't the main baddie.
But he's not the main baddie, but they build him up.
The general arrives while Lewis Collins and the lads are on a mish. They're out on a mission at the bridge over the River Kwai. And the general and his boys basically murder an entire like church full of local people. Who
are already sick and wounded.
Yeah, who are already like either addicted to opium or on their last legs.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the priest hides the wounded merc, who's also not doing great, and the Canadian journalist lady.
Yeah.
And then goes and sits down and plays the organ.
Yeah.
Whether he rubbed out that blackboard on which he'd
train track for him.
This is really complex, this scene. So they get to the monastery.
Oh my God.
Everyone's going to have to watch this film before they listen to this, because they're not going to be able to follow this.
We didn't.
So they get to the monastery, and then the Swiss monk basically explains that there's a bridge over which the train delivers the opium. So he draws this out for them on a blackboard. Literally draws the bridge for them.
Yeah.
And then Lewis Collins and the boys go off and go and find the bridge.
Yeah.
And then the general arrives, kills everyone, doesn't notice the blackboard, but it's smeared with blood now.
Yeah.
And then he crucifies the priest, the monk.
Then they come back and that he's all hanging on the cross.
He's not doing so great, but he's alive.
Yeah, he's alive. They go back to another opium farm. They find another opium farm to escape.
Yeah. What was the plan? Were they going to hop into the helicopter farm? And
they never say why they do that next, what they do next. By that time, you find out that Klaus Kinski's character is the man behind the scenes. He's the man making it all go wrong. But he hasn't been making anything go wrong. You've not seen him shadily walk into a separate room with a radio set and go, now they're going to be here, so set up an ambush, boys. It's never anything like that. He just apparently is the big bad guy, and then it's never explained why he is or anything like that. And then another massive shootout, and I think we'll save what they actually will do to escape for the alley tally because it's outrageous.
I mean, most of this episode's going to be the alley tally.
Yeah, I think the whole movie is pretty much alley tally bait, really.
So yeah, I suppose they then escape.
Yeah,
A lot of them have died by this point. Lee Van Cleef, the journalist lady, and
Collins,
obviously.
obviously your big star.
Yeah, Captain Robin Wesley. And they escape. It apparently becomes clear that the big boss that Wesley's employed by is involved in the opium trade.
Yeah, it's
How did they realize that again? I forget. Like,
I don't quite. Oh no, there was a floppy disks. There was floppy disks. With
oh yeah, that's right.
The general had
a to see like Lewis Collins working an early Apple Mac. Then this is the film for you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how on earth those early floppy disks made it back intact. The amount of running around and jumping and crouching.
Well, they had the little brown paper sleeve.
Oh yeah, that was tactical.
Brown paper sleeve that if you've ever used a floppy disk, then you've got to put it in the paper sleeve.
Like, does that make it impervious to gunfire?
Protects it. That's it. That's
right. Okay.
Safe in there. Yeah. Okay. It's like those hard drives now that have like 6 bands of metal around them. And throw them into a tree and nothing will happen to them.
What would have been?
It's exactly the same with that paper envelope. What
would have been funny if Collins had got back to the main base and they'd had like a Commodore Amiga and they couldn't get the floppies to sync up right. That would have been well funny.
What version of DOS is this running?
We need a 48K modem. You've only got a 28K modem.
I think the main evidence was that it had the company's like logo on it.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to know the company logo at that point, but
yeah, but we never get shown it in any great detail.
No, but it's all sort of like it assumes that we know this as the viewer.
Yeah,
and we put 2 and 2 together, and then we get the ending is literally ripped, almost shot for shot from the Wild Geese.
Yeah.
So at the end of the Wild Geese, where Richard Benton confronts Stuart Granger about being a shit, and eventually shoots him. That is exactly what Collins does.
It's a great homage. Yeah, you could.
You could literally like splice the 2 together shot for shot.
Yeah.
Interchange Granger for the bad guy and Burton for Collins.
You definitely could. It would really work. But then we find out that from it that that's where the big reveal is, that his son was given the opium from the American businessman, and that was like his motivation to get back at him.
Never explained that his son died of a heroin overdose.
No.
And we see him at his grave briefly, and then we find out that it's his son through dialogue.
Yeah.
And we're meant to be like, oh, right, okay. And then the whole film goes by without any other mention of Collins' dead son.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's like, why did you give me son heroin? What are you doing? It's like,
don't give me son heroin and I'll shoot you.
Roll credits.
You're sitting there at the end and you're like, what happened? What was that about? It was fun. It was mindless, but it was fun.
I mean, Lewis Collins basically stops acting halfway through and then...
Oh, yeah. You can definitely tell that he's doing it for the paycheck at this point.
Well, he has 0 to say. There's 0
narrative. Barely any lines in the action.
All he has to do is do the set pieces.
Grits his teeth a lot when he shoots. I think that brings us on to the alley tally.
Half of this episode is going to be the alley tally because it's a mech movie.
It's a mech.
It's a well-stocked mech movie as well.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
So, who wants to go first?
You've got to go first.
Okay. So I'll start off with the first weapon that you see Lewis Collins, the only weapon that you see Lewis Collins use the entire film, apart from right at the end. He has an M1 Thompson the entire film, and there's 2 of them in the movie. Yeah. And they interchange.
Lee Van Cleef ends up with one.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef ends up with one. So there's 2 Thompsons in the movie that we know of. So there's one with like a sort of homemade foregrip on it, which clearly has been made in country.
Yeah, it's got the standard M1, M1A sort of like straight foregrip. And then it has like the M1928 sort of like gangster movie classic.
Yeah.
Sort of like front pistol grip sort of attached to it.
Yeah, it's clear. It's been like I think it's a mock-up, personally, or a blank mock-up or something.
I have no idea.
I'm convinced in one of the shots, maybe we'll put it on the Twitter on a thread. In certain shots, I think it's a dummy or a mock-up Thompson because the barrel looks filled in shots.
Yeah, well, the front sight disappears now and then.
Yeah, every now and then. No stock on it either. Complete
No, yeah, completely
Sandy
no
School of
stock.
Shooting, everybody, if you remember
Centre
that
mass
from
all
the
the way.
Centre Mass all the way, if you remember that from the actual Wild Geese episode. And then, and we've got the airboat gunboat, which is like amazing. So it's this flat, sort of like flat airboat, like they have in
like Florida and stuff.
And it is absolutely it's like a PBR, it's like a Pebber. And it's it's got a 30 cal with a big armored mount on it. It's got sandbags everywhere.
That's an airborne M250 cal.
Oh, nice.
Actually, yeah.
But you never.
But the airborne bit makes it look like a 30 cal
30.
because it has like a full shroud.
That's it. And it never really gets used. It's just it gets them to the quarry.
The next time you see it, Kinski's on it.
Yeah, so he must have found it at the quarry.
I assume so.
Because I thought as well, this is another.
Unless the boat went there and then went back.
Yeah. So they're in that compound right at the end, right? Yeah. And they get that helicopter, and we'll come on to what they do to the helicopter in just a moment. But I've got to have it said, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in the middle of that compound. Kinski brings like 5 blokes with him.
Yeah.
But somehow they turn into like 100 men.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Surely they were better off fighting their way back to the boat and using that.
Well, we get that. The joy of that whole sequence is they're stopped by an electric fence.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which is then jumped by one of the surviving local militia. Only for him to step on the world's largest anti-personnel mine because he gets absolutely blown to smithereens.
He does.
The explosion looks like, God knows, it looks like a cruise missile.
Yeah.
And they're pinned down. They can't do anything. And then Kinski arrives, and the last of the mercs that we don't really know the name. No, there's 2 more. There's one dies in the minefield, and then one dies getting into the building.
That's it, yeah. Yeah. But then, yeah, it just annoys me that they don't go back and use the gunboat because it'd been perfect to get away on.
Well, let's just go back to the gunboat for a moment. On the back of this gunboat, it has a large, really slow-moving fan.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to like hint that it's the hovercraft.
Yeah, it's weird.
When you first see Collins on it, there's a great sort of like Apocalypse Now-esque scene where he's walking along the boat checking his men. You just want to hear Martin Sheen's sort of like narration over the top of it.
You just expect Collins to I can't believe they wanted me to kill Captain Kurtz. This man had won everything there is to win in the American army. Can't believe they wanted me to go and kill Bodie.
Ranger school, pilot school, every decoration known to man.
He came top of his class in CI-50.
Lewis Collins now from Birmingham because we're both doing like Lewis Collins.
He's from Birkenhead. He's from Liverpool. I'm trying to do like he's sort of like really. He's got that low Liverpudlian accent.
Yeah, he's got a Ringo Starr sort of accent on, isn't he? Yeah. You
never see the boat again, so that's annoying. But it's alley, quite alley indeed. It must have been made for the production.
Definitely made for the production. Fair bit of money got spent on that, I think.
Definitely. And then my other alley pick is the helicopter at the end. So they get this.
You're just literally stealing all the best bits out of this film, aren't you?
I don't mean to.
Oh no, the boat and now the helicopter as well.
Okay, I'll choose something different.
No, it's fine. I can jump in on this. That wasn't my pick anyway. I'm just saying you've picked like the 2.
Sorry, there was
the 2 peak movie things. Go on.
I could talk about Beer Man if you wanted.
No, it's all you.
Okay. So they get this chopper to leave, and it's like this tiny little thing. It only luckily it fits 3 people in it, and only 3 people.
How? Like, where does she sit?
Fuck knows. In the middle of it.
It's just Lee Van Cleef, Collins, and the Canadian reporter lady.
That's it.
Who has been given a Thompson, doesn't know how to shoot the Thompson. Lee Van Cleef tells her, you just pull the trigger, but don't point it at me. Goes over to the window and then literally hoses down 100 enemy mercs.
She gives a really good centre mass Sandy School of Shooting again.
Laying it down out that window.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, there's a flamethrower over here.
That's it. Yeah. And then Collins gets it. And instead of like standing in the doorway of he does. He gives one of them, didn't he? He gives one of the lads a jet
the window.
plane. Yeah. And then they somehow, in the space of 5 seconds, rig it onto the helicopter.
Mm.
And then they're escaping, and they
great cable tie and duct tape work, I guess.
Yeah, so they A-team it, is what I said when we were watching it. And then you've got Van Cleef like flying in and out of these opium canister things.
That whole sequence is insane, but the model work, oh my god,
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never seen so many Action Man Jeeps get melted.
Yeah.
It's like Thunderbirds level model work. It's so good.
It's really good.
You can tell it's not real, but it's impressive.
Yeah. They kill everyone around them in the helicopter flamethrower.
Yeah, so Kinski's character is like in the middle, isn't he?
Yeah.
With an M60. And he's jangling himself around in the
jangling it around, yeah. It's so how they didn't shoot that helicopter down, I'll never know. Because some sustained fire from
the
M60.
helicopter get out of the hangar?
Yeah, it never explains that. Well, it's
because
clear,
the hangar door's closed, and then there's sort of explosions, and then the helicopter's outside.
Maybe it was just the expert piloting of China.
His helicopter skills are peak.
Well, he fought in 5 wars. That's what Colin says about him.
That's true. He is the best helicopter pilot in Southeast Asia.
He's in World War II, Korea, Grenada, Vietnam, the Gulf War.
I don't know. This film came out in 1984. Is it?
Oh, not the Gulf War.
I'm traveling now.
Yeah, he's that good. He's flying Cobras over the Gulf.
So that whole scene where they're basically firing a flamethrower from the skids of this helicopter goes on for at least 5 minutes. It feels.
Yeah, it's an extended
the set piece of the movie. It's the peak, like cinematic climax of the film.
But then that's it. That's all you get. Then,
what would you want? It's a flamethrower, Robbie. What more can they give us?
It's meant to be this grand ending. But it's like, because you don't know what's going on, you don't know who you're meant to like care about.
That does undermine it a bit, yeah. If you
really
don't know what's
undermines
going
the
on.
scene. Yeah. Like I know we
know that Kinski's the baddie.
Yeah. We're being too highbrow, but like I'm just like, well, okay, you got away.
Well, the next scene, you see them like arrive. This is the part that made me laugh, was they arrive back at base, and then Lee Van Cleef and the Canadian lady, the journalist, are talking to Ernest Borgnine, and then you just see a Huey fly off into the distance.
Yeah.
And Ernest Borgnine's like, if that's who I think it is, and if he's going where I think he's going, then he's going to do us all a big favor. Why did he need Lee Van Cleef flying a helicopter to the boss's like high-rise office block to kill him, Wild Geese style?
It's utter bollocks, though, isn't it? We're getting off the alley tally a bit, but it's just like, oh my god, you can't think about these films.
Much like the film, there is no structure to this episode.
No.
For alley tally, for me, I think that my top pick is the wooden 1911. It's handed around a lot.
It's so obvious, though.
You know what you shouldn't do? A close up of a prop gun that isn't a gun.
In what it reminded me of, in GoldenEye for the N64, when you pick the pistol up, it looks like that, like really low texture model.
I kept thinking of the other guys where they put like a nice sheen on his wooden pistol.
Oh yeah,
Miles' character. But yeah, so there's a wooden 1911 that's sort of like seen very close up as a hero prop, when it should not be a hero prop.
No.
But my favorite peak moment of Ali is the M1D Garand sniper rifle, complete with M84 sniper scope.
Very nice.
With terrible reticle, which we've already mentioned.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of that whole scene is where he then takes the rifle grenade launcher, which is quite clearly a rifle grenade launcher, puts it on, fits it onto the bayonet lug, and then proceeds to use it as a silencer or a suppressor.
It's so bad.
And it makes the most ridiculous suppressed noise. It's like,
pew, pew.
You're like, what?
Pew. And I think he only shoots one bloke with it as well.
Yeah, he just shoots that one sentry. You never see it again.
Utter bollocks.
That was a peak 80s silencer suppressor noise. Like,
Proper.
I've shot suppressed weapons and they do not sound anything like that.
No.
But you just gotta love it. You have to.
I thought that would make more, like, I thought they were going to use it more. That'd be his trait. Like, he's the sniper, like I thought,
Yeah, they don't really have like skill sets.
No, they don't.
Generic commandos,
like,
all of them.
Yeah, because you might, I think, because obviously, on some level, they're trying to rip off Wild Geese
Mm.
the original movie. So in that film you have got guys that some guys are on LMG, some guys are with Sterling, some guys have got assault rifles. So there is the varied skill set there. But in this one, everyone just seems to either have a Thompson or an M16,
Mm-hmm.
but then
Or an M60.
or an M60, yeah, and then probably the Thompsons and the M60s get used the most.
My other pick is the M20 Super Bazooka, the 3.5-inch rocket launcher,
So good.
where it's literally introduced in dialogue as, "That's a bazooka."
Hit him with the bazooka.
Proper Ian Yule.
Yeah,
Maybe it was an Ian Yule sort of like homage.
Maybe it was, yeah.
So yeah,
really?
they're in that minefield, and then just to make things that extra bit worse, the Golden Triangle militia start opening up on them with this bazooka, this M20.
Only once, so they've only got one round.
Yeah, they have. Well, they haven't got any more mortar rounds to put down, have they?
Well, no, they haven't. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Wild Geese style.
Well, Geese style.
But yeah, there's so much going on in this film. There's Uzis, there's lots of like Type 56s, but all with the folding bayonets removed, which is a bit weird. All the Golden Triangle like militia baddies have Chinese Type 56 AKs.
They're all bad enough. They don't need bayonets.
Yeah, but the bayonet's cool.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah. It's a weird choice.
But they've all been taken off. Anyway, just something I noticed.
But I think they barely even get fired upon by the enemy in this film anyway. And when it's with mainly with M60s and Uzis.
Yeah, it's mostly mech on mech, isn't it?
It's weird, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, and the other alley as well is the weird, and we weren't quite sure what it was, but the weird like camo fatigues that Lewis is wearing, because they've got like really odd ribbed epaulets and ribbed knee pads.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're like some sort of local para variant for maybe
I don't know. I was like, are they Belgian? No, they're not Belgian. I just couldn't work out what the pattern was he was wearing.
It's odd, isn't it? And then the other lads are just wearing regular Erdl, and that's probably just dotted everywhere by that point.
The real alley of the film is Lewis Collins when he's in Hong Kong walking around in his all whites.
Oh yeah, it's cool
with his little vest on as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, okay. So
and he turns up in a Pontiac Firebird for like no.
Yeah, there's a oh my god, we forgot that car chase.
when Collins drives up a fucking pipe like at 45 degree angle.
Tunnel. Like they think he's picked up a tail, and he go through a tunnel and there's roadworks, and it reminded me of iRobot in that.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the director of iRobot saw Codename Wild Geese.
I gotta rip this off. I see a great car chase last night.
That is what we're doing. I want the car to go up the side of the tunnel at least twice. The model work that must have gone into that is insane.
So insane.
And then they get out of the tunnel, and it turns out that, oh no, they're just some lads we put on you to protect you.
Yeah, but even then,
not really being chased.
No, and it's like, oh, that's weird. And then Kinski's like, oh, that's odd. Like, and it's really trying to. It's like he can turn to the camera and go, "I'm the bad guy. I set them up. I'm bad." No. Oh, and Kinski's got a little 38 service revolver when he gets out. Little snub nose.
I didn't notice that.
He had a little snub nose revolver, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Little Colt revolver. It's a nice little thing. Good bit of kit inclusion was Collins had what appeared to be some sort of Thompson pouch, which was nice. And the lads who had the M16s appeared to be wearing 80s or 70s American Alice webbing, which was M16 webbing. So that was good. At least they had the right webbing for the guns they had.
Yeah.
That's rare for these sort of movies.
Quite a few Car 15s.
Yes.
Model 653 Colt carbines.
Mm-hmm.
He has one of those at the end. But yeah, it's just, there's a plethora of stuff going on. And, shout out to Lewis Collins and his commando role and his very alley sort of like Thompson mag changes that he does.
Very cool. I'll make that a gift.
It's always great when someone reloads in one of these films.
Yeah, that needs to be a gift.
It's so rare. So there's a great little shot of Collins where he's lining up the rib on the Thompson mag into the front of the trigger housing, and he loads it in, cocks it.
Does look
before he goes into that building and clears it on his own, and he does this epic commando roll.
So cool.
which would definitely have gotten you shot.
yeah.
If you'd done that in real life.
Because you can see him like throw the weight of his body as well. Like he like throws his front arm forward to get like momentum.
Yeah, and his leg as well. He proper lands on his leg. But yeah, it's full of Ali. There's loads of M16A1s.
Yeah.
In there. Yeah, it's just what you would hope to see.
It's a romp, isn't it? It's just a romp, and there's nothing else you can say. Like it's just sort of.
I haven't seen the other two though.
Yeah, they're bad. This had a lot more This had a lot more going for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other, I think it was Commando Leopard or Dare Commando. There wasn't a lot of action till the end.
Mm.
I mean, I know Donald Pleasance is in one of them, which is mental. But
Commando Leopard and the Commander.
That's it. But that's another thing entirely. So that'll bring us on to our favourite scenes.
Whole film. Great film.
Fair enough. See you next week, folks. No.
I don't know whether I have a favourite scene. I mean, what's your favourite scene?
Well, for me, it's more favourite character this week. Is Beer Man.
An Australian? Is he Australian or South African? I can't tell.
He might be. He's just, this dub's a bit odd, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, he's there with a big bag of Bud cans. Once he's ziplined into the camp, into the radio room, crashed through the ceiling, killed a guy, captured another, has a piece of bamboo like go through his arm, so he has to stay behind. He then proceeds to start like opening up his pouches and pulling out tins of Bud from what are ostensibly white phosphorus grenade pouches.
But perfectly, those old 80s Budweiser cans, perfect fit. Yeah. Perfect fit. There must be thousands of like 80s American reenactors who now do the exact same thing.
Where he's talking to the prisoner and he like smashes the can in front of him. Don't do that again.
Don't do that again. Crunch.
I was like, what a waste. And then he just pulls another one out of another pouch. Cracks it open. And then
once they've got to their target and they say, okay, you're done now, you can go, sort of thing.
Oh god, yeah.
And he just sort of he goes, okay, cool. And like one of the prisoners runs away and they gun him down. But he just casually like strolls out of the little bamboo hut and he pulls a grenade out of one pouch, just casually pulls the pin, throws it.
There's a guy still in there, yeah.
Guy's still in there, throws the grenade behind him, and then casually just keeps walking, pulls a new Bud out, rips the can open, takes a sip, and there's an explosion behind him, and it's just like the coolest thing you've ever seen, you know. If it panned, like if it faded down, it was like Budweiser, the cool taste, you know, it'd be like a proper advert.
Literally sponsored by Bud.
Really is.
Bud and Coke. That's all of the cans in this film are just Bud and Coke. I think my favourite scene is where we see shirtless Ernest Borgnine.
Him and his aide, aren't they? Him and his British accomplice.
Yeah, he's like the governor's aide from like Hong Kong or something, I think. Anyway, so we're at the end of the film and as they're arriving back in their little helicopter, Ernest Borgnine's like in bed, topless, and it's like the most jarring thing ever. Like it's the last thing you expect to see in the end of the film, just like Ernest Borgnine's chest. He quickly slips on a shirt and runs outside and is very excited to see everyone. Just very jarring. But I think my favorite scene just has to be all that model work. Like
it's so good, isn't it?
Like, it truly is Thunderbird's sort of marionette vision level of model work. It's just really good and slightly humorous at the same time.
It's really like the attention to detail is quite good as well. You know, like even when like the helicopter that they escape on, they've either bought or made the same helicopter model. Even if you're like, that's clearly a fucking model. Like at least it's the same model. Yeah,
but then the Jeep's slightly too large because it's an Action Man one.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh no. That's a fake Jeep.
The truck that Kinski smashes into the barn that the helicopter's in. that changes very as a split second. Like
Is it Bedford?
It's not a Bedford, no. No, it's not Bedford. Bedfords wouldn't tank themselves appearing in this picture.
That's the only way this film could be better if it had been a Bedford.
They could not afford Bedfords on this feature.
Well, if they had, it would have been getting blown up. Let's face it. That's the fate of a Bedford Mac movie.
Yeah.
My other favorite scene is Lewis Collins using a computer. It's just like, what? You just don't expect to see Lewis Collins using a computer.
You laugh, right? You laugh.
I do.
When he retired, legit moved to America and started selling computer parts.
No way.
That's what he did. Yeah, that's what he did till he unfortunately passed away. That he made his money.
Amazing. Like, what was he selling? Like Apple Macs and
I think it's just like computer parts.
IBMs.
Maybe it formed in his head from this movie.
Maybe, or maybe he was a computer guy at that point. He was like, you know what we should do? We should have a computer in this film. That'll make it really cool.
Yeah. And because they're quite cutting edge, aren't they? 84.
Yeah.
Like,
if I knew more about computers, I would be able to like tell you what model it was and mention it in the alley tally. But I'm just a gun guy.
I think it was either an
gun guy.
It was either an Apple Mac, or it was a Mac clone.
Something like that.
It
had one of those like 4-inch giant floppy drives though, didn't it? I guess that rounds us out. Like there's not a great deal more we can talk about.
It does.
It's very thin, but we've focused on the important points and we've covered the copious amounts of alley. That's it. This film is basically what the alley is made for, and it's a cool kid movie. Like, for the period, it's a cool kid movie.
It's definitely, and if you're a fan of like 80s action films and a fan of B movies, like this is perfect fodder. You know, if you don't know what to watch and you don't want something highbrow, you don't want to think, you know, just crack a beer, find this online, stick it on, have a laugh. Because sometimes you need to do that with films. I know, like, we try and be really serious, and obviously last week with Taff, serious discussion about a serious movie and a serious topic and things like that. But these movies were like completely made up narratives, larger than life action heroes. They've got their place within the war movie genre. They have their place in cinema. They've got their place, and I think this is probably one of the better ones.
Yeah, I mean, but the key aim of the pod is to cover conflict on film, isn't it? So fighting on film, and there's certainly some fighting in this film. How many films do you see about the Golden Triangle?
And that's got to count for something.
It's an enjoyable sort of romp where it has some dips and there's some like narrative sort of like failures where it doesn't quite explain some of the bits that are going on. But yeah, it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a bit of fun.
It was good. It was 6 Italian combat smocks out of 10.
Is that how we're doing this?
No, but
Italian combat smocks.
That would be quite funny.
The alley tally is not really a tally. We can't literally.
It's not an actual tally.
Films, but it's impossible. It's just a roundup at this point.
No, I give it like
when we thought about the alley tally. So this is going a little bit off tangent for the app. But when we thought about doing the alley tally as a feature, I did think, could we do it as an actual like tally and score it up, like see what's cool in there? But
it takes too long.
Quickly became clear that we need to open this up and just cover all of the cool stuff that we see in these films, because that's the fun part. Maybe
if we get a website, we can do some sort of wall or some sort of tally. Then
maybe
there's room for it. The alley archive, something like that.
Yeah. I know there's a few people that have been a bit confused, like maybe they've come to the pod after we explain what the alley tally is.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a bit esoteric as well, because alleys are like a British Army slang term. So you're like, well.
And we're turning that, we're skewing what that slang term is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not strictly the meaning of the slang term as it was originally used.
No.
But I think this film's a brilliant example of an 80s merc movie with plenty of like alley kit in it.
Definitely. That was kicking off Merc Month in style.
We love Lewis Collins on the pod, and I think this is probably his best merc movie.
So that was Merc Month #1.
Yeah, so let us know what you think of Codename Wild Geese. You can find us over on Twitter at Fighting on Film.
For Merc Month, I thought we'd have a bit of fun on the Twitter feed. So I've made some funny little skits out of sequences from this movie. So we'd love your interaction on those, because I think they're really funny.
They are quite good.
They're quite good. We'll catch you over on the Twitter, and make sure you leave us a written review on Apple Pods if you're listening on there. and a star rating on whatever you're listening on. And we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.